Hi, and welcome to the voice of Bold Business Radio. You are listening to Program 32, You're Covered. I'm Jessica Dewell, your host of Red Direction. I want to start with a quote today from Maya Angelou. This came up in my research for something else that I was doing, and I thought it was really profound and useful right here, right now. And she said, "I have my own back." Simple, full of courage, yet at the same point in time, how do we have our own back? And what does that actually mean? And where do we put our attention to make sure we're covered, to make sure that we've got everything we want and more, so when the unexpected happens, we can step right into it and go with the flow. And one of those things that we need is courage. The courage to not be needed in every second of every day of every person that we interact with. We want them, our teams, our families, we want them to go do their own thing and solve their own problems, the things that we work on together, that we connect to and for together are deeper, and they can evolve our relationship in totally new and different ways. It also takes planning. The planning to create redundancy, the concept of if I'm gone, somebody else knows what to do, so I can stay home and take a sick day. Or I can stay home and take care of a sick family member. Or if I'm going to miss a meeting because I had a flat tire on the way there, I have faith and trust the planning is in place and the conversations occurred that needed to occur so that things can go on without me. Most importantly, in my opinion, is the value that it adds. When we let knowledge sit in our own brains, we're thinking about how the whole world needs us and we're the best and we're doing it all and it can't be done without us. We're the ones that have the value, which is great and all because we want to be valued, we want to contribute. Yet it's also very limiting because it means we can't unplug, we're more susceptible to overwhelm or burnout. And the other side of that is, as a leader in an organization and or the owner of an organization, that means all that value is inside right here. And when you're ready to leave or be promoted or sell or change the way things happen, if it's all in here, there is nothing to pass on. And you're more valuable exactly where you are than in the place that you want to go to. And that, my friends, is the biggest reason to make sure you're covered and you do have your own back. Right after this, Tanya Bourque and I will be talking about redundancy, cross-training, and a whole bunch of other things from this perspective of this internal value.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Wow, Tanya, it's been a little bit since you and I have had a chance to sit and chat on the show to talk about these business issues and problems that we face. How have you been?
Been great.
Are you reading a new book, or is there an article or a new magazine that you found lately?
Not really, just a lot of how-to-do books, trying to fix things or...
I get that. It's always about trying to fix things, huh? I know one thing, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to do this show, and I was thinking of you because you always have great information and some really good stories about when we're just having conversations, and I'm like, man, I'm overwhelmed, or I don't know what to do. You're always right there, and it must be those how-to books, I have no idea, but you always have some idea, and you can get things moving. And so from an HR perspective, I think the place we should start is cross-training. And the importance of cross-training. So how about if you take that for a minute and talk about what cross-training does for each individual as well as the teams within organizations?
I would say my career started in very small organizations. What was really scary was there's always this one person that knew where everything was. And if that person was out, nobody else knew where it was or how to do it. And it was really scary because at one organization or was going to join, their secretary had died, and that's why the position was open.
Did all the information leave this earthly realm with her?
Yeah, It all went to heaven. At least we all hope it went to heaven. The passwords to the computer, the passwords to the accounting software, the phone numbers for certain people and certain things, the resources. Basically, when I came on board, I had to pretty much redo everything that she had done. It cost a lot of money to my new employer, and that's when I had a discussion with him. I said, you really should know where everything is. There should be like a booklet that says where everything is and how to do it.
I see, everybody. This is why I love talking to Tanya. I have never heard this story before. And sure enough, she's got one that takes the cake from the get-go and sets the stage. And we've got to look at this. What is the worst case scenario? And thanks for bringing it with because we need to know, holy cow, you're right. New Year's Eve and everybody's already at parties and nobody's answering their phones and something happens and the website goes down and you're running a sale. Then what happens if you're the only one there, leader, owner, person, but you don't have all the information? As a leader, it is our responsibility to make sure whoever's in charge of that, whoever's going to be fixing that problem, whether it's us or somebody else, has what they need. As the suggestion that Tanya, you just shared is a really good one. Keep it documented. That's actually something that is really overlooked all the time. No company that I have ever worked with, and I'll be completely honest, including my own, has a really well documented set of procedures. Or if they are really, really well documented, it's how to do the things. It's not necessarily the stuff you need to have to execute the steps. That's where I fall short. I'm like, sure, I got the how-to. Sure, I got all this stuff that you follow, but I might forget to make sure everybody knows what the passwords are or what the actual application is to get started or things like that. You know, you can't go until you have the first step. So I was thinking, how do I cross-train my team, right? How do I cross-train my team? Well, we have documentations of all the processes we have, and we also have our chart of responsibilities. And I say a chart. It's a general spreadsheet that says these are the things that are happening in our business, and here's who's responsible for them, and then where the latest notes are. Simple, straightforward. It's not updated on a fairly regular basis, but we can limp along in the event of a big problem. The skill set that we hire for, and I know, Tanya, you're going to be able to talk way more about this, we need to hire for two things on our teams. The skills we need to get the jobs done, and the skills we need to create redundancy so that we can deal with a missing person once in a while, whether they're sick or on vacation or they are just done here on earth.
One thing that I've always suggested to people is to buddy up with 3 people in the office, and everybody should have an idea of what that other person is doing and how they do it. I'll give you an example. I went on vacation for 3 weeks. Someone had to take over my recruiting responsibilities when I went on vacation at my last organization. And I had a partner or a buddy that was working on a different segment of the company, but she totally understood who the hiring managers were, where everything was, what was in the system, what am I working on. And so when I went on vacation, stuff was covered and everybody got serviced like I never left. And when she went on vacation, we did the same thing. When I left, that also got translated over to her and she was able to take over until they found my replacement. Having that kind of system in place where people trust each other.
And the job that's already being done is not so full and outside of capacity to complete. It allows an openness and a dialogue for that trust to be built. Now, did you bring that idea to that organization, or was that something that you were trained to as part of the culture?
We're very good friends, and we were working on each other's units, and so from time to time that just happened to be that way. It wasn't anything that anybody decided on.
There's a level of communication here, and there's a level of letting go. This is what it takes. We've decided we're going to work together, that we're going to cover for each other, which also helps because if I have no work to do, it would be really great to be able to go, hey, I'm kind of bored over here while I'm waiting for this next thing to come in. What you got? Let me help out. And that's actually a relationship that doesn't always happen because of how many meetings there are, how many tasks there are to get done, the amount of email that we're dealing with, both internally and externally, and just the constant bombardment of fires and information that we are responding to quickly. That leads to overwhelm, and we may be the best handling overwhelm, and we may be able to go, I can take the pressure. I work really good under pressure. Yet, there's still some things that will come up for some of us. So even if we're the best under pressure, if we're thinking about overwhelm, first we've got to be able to spot it so that we don't get on the path to burnout or actually get completely burnt out. But I think more importantly is that when we're overwhelmed, we're not able to be curious and really connect with our colleagues and develop those relationships within our team, and as leaders, develop the people on our teams. I know for me, and this is a real biggie for me, I am a worrywart. Thankfully, I'm not as much of a worrywart as I used to be. I still think about what's going to happen. And I come from a family of this, and I think I worry. I don't think they worry, the rest of my family. My mom is a successful business owner. My sister is a successful business owner. And my other sister, she is an instructional coach in high school, and she's responsible for a lot of teachers. So we have a lot of established success in terms of what I come from. And I think this planning is an element of it. But when I was growing up, this planning was like, so this is what's on the calendar. And if it's not on the calendar, it's not going to happen. And we're going to fill that calendar up. Done. Well, I was always worried, well, what happens if? And somebody always had an answer in my family. Well, we've got a plan C and an L and an M and a P and a Q and a W. And each one of those plans, it was like a pinball machine where you know the plan Q has all these things that have to happen to make plan Q necessary. And I'm like, I'm always thinking about, if I need plan Q, something else is really wrong here. And so I was always worrying, what if I have to do that? What if I have to do that? How am I supposed to know that that's actually happening? So it was a little stifling for me personally in my personality, but it made me a good planner. I don't go all the way to the end of the alphabet, but because I just do it differently to fit my personality. But the concept being, everybody was worried about all the variations, and so much time was spent on the variations and the potentials and where they might be going that we were totally missing the moment. All of our spare time that we could have been working on new projects, that we could have been doing something as a family, that we could have spent with our friends, that we could have done in our volunteer work, was all harnessed over here in this planning. And for me, it was worry. Another one is our judgments about things, automatically going yes or no. How do you deal with judgment when you face somebody not wanting to let you help them, Tanya?
My biggest thing these days, I guess, is when people approach me for advice on something and they go, and I'm like, why am I even talking to you? Because it's almost like they don't believe what you're saying.
So they're coming to you for advice, but then they're judging your advice? That's what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that hilarious that people come to you for advice, but they really just want to share a story themselves? They just want to be heard. I think that's very interesting. And it's overwhelming because who has time for that? No. And everybody, that's true. Who has time to give advice and be thoughtful about it when all you wanted to do is tell your story? So just tell your story already. I got something to tell you, and you may have an opinion, but I may not listen to it.
That's what it's been lately. And I deal with a lot of job seekers on a daily basis, and a lot of CEOs, CFOs, COOs, and startup founders, and a whole bunch of people, and even friends and family that come for advice from time to time. I do a lot of pro bono work with job seekers looking for jobs. It's really hard when you're trying to help someone and they're not taking your advice to heart. I used to get offended when you try to help someone and they won't take your help. Mm-hmm. Now I'm like, okay, I'm better off. I have so much to do right now.
This concept of non-judgment, it's also part of empathy. And it's really hard because some of this stuff is really ingrained. It's how we learn to communicate. It's how we were heard when we communicate with other people. And I'd go one step further and say, when I talk about non-judgment, I'm talking about recognizing that there are going to be things that I'm judging that I don't even know, these inherent biases that I have. We all have them. If we're walking down the road and we see somebody that looks a little scary and nefarious and we're not sure what their motives are, do we walk down the street and actually pass them on the same sidewalk? Probably not. We probably cross the street and get out of the way and keep our distance. That is a judgment, and judgments that help keep us safe are awesome. When we're talking about judgment and being judgmental, it happens whether we know it or not. This is a fact some of you may know. When a woman is pregnant, and as soon as the sex of the baby is known, our language changes. Our language changes to boy-directed language or girl-directed language, which I find incredibly interesting. So there's something wired in our brains that's making us judge that we don't even know. And so recognizing that there might be a bias there is really important. I found myself the other day, Tanya, I was having a conversation and I got called out, and I was so glad. I was so glad I got called out. She goes, "Where did you go? You kind of became a wallflower. That's not like you. What happened in this situation that made you sit back, shut up, and be seen and not heard?" And I was like, oh, how strange that in this particular situation, it brought out something that was so inherent. It became what I was told to do. How do you be a good little girl? Came out in my adult life in a situation where it wasn't detrimental to the outcome of the conversation, but I wished I had said more when I was done. So it didn't go the way that I wanted. Had I been able to recognize that I was making a judgment that what I had to say wasn't necessary to the conversation. The thing is, that's a judgment, and we don't know until we say it. We don't know if what we say has value or not until we say it. And you would never encounter that if I had a twin brother and he was standing right here and we were exactly the same in every way. He would never think twice about that. That is part of just the genders that we share and what's wired inside of us. So I wanted to just bring that up in the sense that we may say we're not judgmental, but we really are always careful about watching what we say and catching ourselves and challenging those assumptions. Basically, non-judgment is also just challenging assumptions to go forward. Let's talk about making choices and sticking to them, because that's another big part of overwhelm. It's if I've agreed to too much, how do I go backwards because I'm not going to do the job that I want? But make each choice purposeful. Do you have any tips or tricks about that, Tanya?
So sometimes we underestimate or overestimate the scope of what it is that we've taken on. And it's okay to ask for help. You can't be everywhere at once, and sometimes an emergency comes up, something comes up, and having that backup plan to who do you ask, who can you depend on. There's a big problem with asking for help. There's two major fears. The first one is the person I'm going to assign is going to do an awful job, and when I come back, my reputation is tarnished. The second one is just the opposite. That person's going to do a fantastic job, and I won't have a job when I come back.
I felt both before. Have you felt both before?
I haven't. I've never really been too worried about not coming back and there be no job. I'm worried about someone causing a disaster and I have to clean it up. And that adds on to the work the new occurring work that comes when I come back to work. But I have to say that I've learned that nobody's going to die if I take a vacation.
So let's talk about this. The fear that nobody can do it as good as I can. So I can't be sick for a day. So I'm going to be in bed with my chicken noodle soup and I can barely breathe. My brain doesn't work. I can't keep my eyes open because my head hurts so bad. And I'm on the computer and I'm trying to answer emails. That's really not good quality work.
I'll give you another example. I'm in labor with a BlackBerry still in my hand.
Okay, this is a true story.
This is a true story.
We're getting a Tanya truth here.
In labor, giving birth to my son, or getting ready to give birth to my son, BlackBerry is in my hand. Obviously, how am I going to concentrate on that when I'm trying to concentrate on something else?
I hear you.
But so worried that something is going to go wrong, or somebody's going to wonder where I've been, or missing in translation, or
there's a worth element in there, in addition to a fear that it's not going to be done right. And to recognize that when we can identify that in ourselves, okay, I did not go into labor with my phone in hand. I had to be pulled away to my maternity leave, which I was like, baby was due today. Baby did not come today. And Ryan said, "You're not going to work tomorrow." And I was like, I'm not going to work tomorrow. I can't even comprehend what that looks like. What are you talking about? This desire to make a difference and be involved. There was no replacement for me in that place. While I had been preparing, right? I had 9 months to prepare, and I had been actually actively talking about all of these things and offloading all of these things and helping make sure people were able to do what needed to get done. Nobody ever really wanted to do what I did. And I don't know if that's just because they were too busy or because what I was doing just was really that unappealing to everybody else in the organization. Regardless, that part doesn't matter. I loved what I was doing and that was fine. What if you can't get somebody to want to cover? What if you can't get somebody to want to cover the work that needs to be done, even if it's not the exact same way?
people don't want to touch other people's stuff.
They don't want to?
They don't want to.
Okay. Tell me why.
They're thinking my work is going to suffer if I take on something more.
Well, I got to think about this for a minute. I can only picture you in labor, in your gown, and your husband's next to you. It's all good, Tanya. It's all good, Tanya. And you're like, this needs to be done. And so, I just got the call back, or you should be expecting something in the next 2 days. I can totally see you.
I think it got to the point where I just emailed my boss, I'm going into labor, and I turned off the BlackBerry. But
when we're talking in the scope of leaders, we recognize that we have our own set of responsibilities as a leader, and that usually includes a team. And when we've got this team and we've got this container that we're holding and we're working within, because we have responsibilities and obligations to contribute our part to the company-wide goals. This is actually an organizational cultural thing, is where I think Tanya is taking us at this moment, in terms of we've got the way work is done. And when people are fearful to touch other people's work because their own work is going to suffer, when there's fear around the fact that somebody's not going to do the work that needs to be done and I'm the only one that can do it, or when we fear like there's a different person on the team that's going to get my spot, if you will, or cut in line, or be escorted to the front of the line. All those fears, I think, come down directly to organizational culture. And guess who it starts with? The person responsible for the space. Us, the leaders.
There's some environments more than others that create a situation or an environment where people feel that they need to throw each other underneath the bus. And that's how they survive. It's almost like Gladiator in some environments. That's where that fear is. If I take a vacation, when I come back, so-and-so will get that promotion, I won't. Or when I come back, I might get fired or laid off.
Regardless of our fears, regardless of the culture that we work in, regardless of the way that we personally react, right? If we're thinking about our own emotional intelligence and our self-awareness, regardless of any of those things, it's amazing how many people, and you might know this, Tanya, how many people have 3 weeks of vacation and they don't take any of it ever?
Well, the statistics are saying 90%.
90% of what?
Of people don't take their vacation.
Okay. So that right there, whether we're overloaded, overwhelmed or not, whether we have the best poker face or not, that right there is a problem.
And that's specifically in the United States.
I love capitalism and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I like the way that we work, but it does create some unintended outcomes, and that creates tired employees, and tired employees can't work as efficiently, and those tired employees that aren't working as efficiently then have to work longer hours, and then those longer hours turn into I'm taking my laptop with me on vacation, so I'm basically remote working for a week instead of actually unplugging and being gone. And there's value to being gone. How many of you parents out there are like, I just want to get away for a massage or a pedicure or a date night with my spouse, and all I want is 2 hours. And that is enough to change the relationship that we have with our families and our spouses and our partners and whomever, just 2 hours. But we won't do that for our job. Now, if we're looking at our priorities of life, more power to us. If that's your priority in life is your work, awesome. Having somebody that you can rely on, though, amplifies the results. One person doing everything that they can in 24 hours and having all the priorities and responsibilities for a 24-hour period is only going to get so much done. But if there are 3 or 4, right, this whole team that we have at our offices, the people that we collaborate with outside of our regular work to build ideas, all of these things working together, we now have pieces of everybody's time working on it. So there's more ideas, there's more conversation, there's more reach, and we're amplifying the result. And it starts with changing what we do, taking a break.
Yeah, and think about burnout. We're not taking vacations. We're going to burn out. We're going to get frustrated. We're going to get mad, and personal health suffers.
Let's go back to the cross-training. First thing, I really liked your idea, and I'd like to bring it back. I know everybody's going to have some semblance of what they think cross-trained or covering for each other looks like in their department, in their organization. I'm going to ask that you stop and you set aside your judgment. You set aside what you're going to hear. You're probably going to hear this, and you're going to go, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that. Think about the ways that we're putting it together, though, and just do a quick audit. Do an audit of your process right now and find out, as we're talking about these things, what you might try differently that would support your teams, that would improve their own personal development and improve the output, the work output of the team to be more efficient, to be more in general, and to have less errors. When we cross-train, I really liked, Tanya, I want to go back to your idea of this buddy system. You're buddying up, and somebody with similar job responsibilities understands the flow, and you create a way to work together that it's easy for somebody to incorporate the extra work, the necessary work, not all of your work, but the necessary work that must be done while you're gone gets done. What are some tips? If somebody's going to do that, what are some tips that you would have to start that?
Taking a look at the relationships on the team. Where are the strong relationships? Where are people actually eating lunch and hanging out together, and chats with who, and building up those relationships there? I think for me, had I not felt so comfortable with that person, I wouldn't have felt comfortable with exchanging roles from time to time.
Another piece of that would be, I would say, is to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the team. And this is beyond who is the weakest link and who is the strongest link. This is every single person on the team has strengths, and every single person on the team has weaknesses. So who in my department, who am I responsible for, and what are their weaknesses? So I understand when somebody goes out, they're out, for whatever reason they're out, they're not in the office. I know where to delegate work that is within the strengths of my team, and I don't accidentally put somebody in a panic or set them up to fail or all kinds of other negative things that I'm not intentionally trying to do, but it's that I didn't really think about everybody's weaknesses on the team and where are the strengths that can carry the adjusted workload during the time one of my employees is out.
Well, like we said, having that manual together of what everyone does and what the passwords are and what the procedure is, having that updated frequently.
Frequently means less than every 5 years, guys. Once a year is not enough, but
once a quarter.
I incorporate it into my review process too. Granted, I'm giving feedback all the time and I'm doing in-process stuff, but I sit down and I have a conversation that's like, well, I don't know if it's annually. It's on some longer term basis, and it's not never. And one of the things that I'm doing in them is, okay, so this is what I understand the current responsibilities are. This is what I understand that you are responsible for. Do you feel you're still responsible for all of these? And what are the priorities that you get? And what's not on this list that you're doing? And so then I, as the leader, can say, okay, I'm the department head. I know what people are doing that's not documented, and we can get it documented, or we can know it's happening, or we can change some priorities. Because I think that's a pretty big piece too, is when we're shifting and adapting in the moment, it's hard to stop and write it down, but we can catch it. And I think that's what Tanya just brought up. That was a really good point. We can catch that, and we're never going to have something that's 100% up to date all the time. If our net and the right places of our net are repaired and maintained, it's going to catch us when we fall, and we won't fall through. And that's, I think, what we're looking for most. So we've got building the relationships, we've got the strengths and the weaknesses, we've got the manuals. We've also this concept of, there's a word and it's a buzzword and I don't like it. Post-mortem. That's the word I don't like. How morbid is that? Why do people do that in business? Why do you want to post-mortem anything? I
used to hate it because it usually meant something went wrong.
Right. And it's used interchangeably. And I'm like, well, why don't we have a funeral instead? Because at least that celebrates something. So one thing, to go back to the building of the relationships, to understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the team, to understanding and keeping track of the actual physical steps that are going to save us and being able to allow people who don't do tasks all the time be able to do the tasks that need to be done, are to have debriefs. What would the person that is doing the task, what would they actually like to see happen differently next time? Did they find a quicker way or a more efficient way or a different way that got a result that was in line more to the goal? How can we use some of these things to actually self-check and look at the development of our department? And this is where I think developing our people really comes in, because the person doing it now has a responsibility. So if it's you and me, Tanya, and you go on vacation, and we come back, and the owner of the company says, sit down with me and talk about this. And I say, I found this cool way to do this. Here's what I thought really worked. And you might go, oh, yeah, I thought about that and didn't have a chance to try. Or, that worked for a while, but here's where the lump or the bump came in. So we get to actually evaluate the role and make sure that as our company changes, as the marketplace changes, as our clients change, we're adapting our roles to stay up to date as well.
I think another thing is if we're testing out a new software or a new product, I think that more than one person should be trained on it.
Oh, that's a whole other show. Oh boy. Yes. Yeah. Okay. We talked about how do we take a vacation, and what I think I'm going to leave you with, and Tanya may have something different to leave you with, but I'm going to leave you with. So now you got all of this stuff, but do you really want to make a change yet? Maybe not. So I'm going to say, take a break, unplug, even if it's for a day, take a break, unplug and get away and just see what happens. See what happens to the stuff from the processes that are in place, because now this is a second way to set aside your judgment. You've listened to the things that we were talking about and being able to compare that to what you already do. Now you're going to walk away and you're going to see what happens, and you're going to see the physical results that you will be able to embrace and own the good, the bad, and the ugly, and move forward with that. And then we can talk more about what to do with this information in our next program. What would you add to that, Tanya?
Take a vacation. Nobody's going to die.
And now you have it. You are listening to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. This is program 32. You're covered. And you can view all of the program notes at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P32, or search the site for You're Covered. Don't forget, if you like what you're hearing, we want to hear a comment. Remember, we asked you to set aside your judgment. Tell us, where do you find yourself judging? Where do you find yourself reacting? And how do you work with that to have meaningful conversations? And we want to know, how do you know you're covered?
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.